Was very taxing. I think I lost at least 5 years of life from doing that. This is probably the way to go. It's safe, it's secure. This career of nursing.
We've been traveling anesthesia providers, traveling all over the country providing anesthesia.
Felt a lot like work. When you have a crashing patient, every heartbeat counts, every rhythm change counts, every drop of blood counts. It's go time. This is what we're trained for.
Welcome to the Investing RM podcast. Today we have Vincent Cagungun. Did I say that right?
Yep, Vinny Two Guns. You got it.
Vinny Two Guns. Yeah, so I started chatting with Vinny a while ago, and a lot has happened since then, and we're going to dive into most of it today, I think. So he's a CRNA. He started his tagline on Instagram as CNA to CRNA. He's built a CEU company. He's just been featured on The Amazing Race. Hopefully we'll get into all of it. So we'll see how much time this allows us to have. Thank you for coming on, Vinny.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. Doing a lot of like PR and exposure stuff. Like today we're getting on the local Colorado news. So like getting my mouthpiece ready and talking and stuff is just not like second nature to me. So this will be good.
So we'll be your practice round before the big hitters come on.
I'm actually already nervous.
Can't tell.
It's like being on this podcast.
So you're based out of Colorado. What part?
So right now, we're doing the whole travel locums anesthesia thing. So it's like we're changing it up. 6 months ago, we were in Boston. Now we're in Denver, a little suburb outside of Denver, I guess. It's called Lone Tree or Englewood area.
Yeah, so we usually start off each podcast talking about your journey, really, how you got into nursing, what made you decide anesthesia was the route inside of nursing, and what was even your first exposure to the hospital?
Oh, man. All of it really landed on my lap. So I'm Filipino. If you don't know, majority of nurses in California, where my family's from, is Filipino. And if you're born Filipino, you're either going to be like a karaoke singer or like a nurse or something of those professions. And so like my mom was a nurse. I noticed as we immigrated from the Philippines, came over to America, it was able to provide for our family. And then I think my brother became a nurse after that. I kind of followed after him in his footsteps, and my sister went into pharmacy. So like I started to see that, this is probably the way to go. It's safe, it's secure. My mom was a nurse in the Philippines and had a hard time passing her board in America. And she was actually sponsored to come from the Philippines over to New York, where we first immigrated to. And so I saw the progression of this career of nursing and being able to support at least our immigrant little poor family that we started as.
Yeah. So you were born in the Philippines?
Yeah, I was born in the Philippines, came over when I was 2 years old. So the majority of my life has been in America, but my upbringing, right, my household, the culture is all very, very deeply Filipino.
What is it about like nursing that is like why is it that like so many Filipinos are nurses? I guess like I've seen it throughout my whole career. I guess I've never really asked like what it is about nursing that draws Filipinos specifically to it.
I think there's a two-part to it. So one, like our culture and our nature as Filipino people, I think are natural caregivers. Like if you were just to see us outside of our profession, we are just generally gentle, caring, want to be warm, kind of want to be helpful to people. I think that's just cultivated into us. But then I think as a Filipino in the Philippines, they have programmed these ideas and thoughts that like when my mom was growing up and she was in the Philippines getting her nursing degree, they said, oh, this is America's roads are paved with, back then it was called milk, or they would say milk, which was really like, I guess, kind of like what we would say the roads are paved with gold. And so they would, seek out America as the opportunity for nursing. And then during like the 80s, there was this whole thing where we didn't have enough nurses in America and they would petition and sponsor people over. So that was kind of like the opportunity where we had this mass exodus of Filipinos having an opportunity to come to America to really make decent money and then send it back. And in the Philippines, every dollar is currently like 50 pesos. So that's a lot of money.
I've actually heard that about today now, like because there's such a shortage in the hospitals right now. So I actually heard that there's different programs to sponsor immigrants to come and work in our hospitals as nurses, but as like other areas of the hospital also.
Yep, there has been a recent kind of rejuvenation of those policies. I believe in the beginning of Biden's term is when it really started.
This episode is sponsored by All Day Investments. If you would like to get your start in real estate investing, but don't want to deal with toilets or tenants, we have several new opportunities that might interest you. Head over to alldayinvestments.co/invest or follow the link in our show notes to book a call with our team.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see kind of in the next couple of years, because as we've started doing this podcast and diving in, part of the reason we started doing this is we're seeing all these nurses burnt out, like new nurses coming in 1, 2, 3 years and just like leaving the profession or career, whatever it is. But yeah, so it's like going forward, I don't know, I could almost see something like this being huge again for foreign nurses, just because like American nurses don't seem to be sticking it out in here. So I mean, do you I know you're in the CRNA field now, but have you seen something like that where you feel like this might be like the way things are headed?
Absolutely. Like I've been a nurse for now 15 years. I went into CRNA school at 11 years. So I've kind of seen, and then even with my mom being in it for like 30 plus years, I've seen it kind of have these wax and wane kind of ebbs and flows of this career or profession. And I definitely think like today, burnout rates as a nurse, as a new grad nurse, people coming in as a new nurse are getting burnt out within 12 months. Especially post-COVID, things are just totally different. Like even Josh, you can probably speak to this. When we get patients that come from the floor into our OR, those patients are no longer the same. They're not bathed, they're not pre-op properly. All the different things that are actually really important to a patient's outcome is kind of missed, or maybe even unable to get to, just because they're just overstretched. And the healthcare profession today and kind of the healthcare hospital system at large is kind of broken, right? And so when you talk about insurance, when you talk about all these different pieces to the puzzle, it really doesn't have a solution in sight. And so with new nurses leaving because they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to continue this, getting burnt out, there's opportunity for immigrants. People who have maybe a lesser opportunity in different countries will come over and say, hey, look, I'll take $60,000 to $100,000 a year. That's something I'll do. Absolutely. I'll work 12 hours. I'll work my butt off, wiping butt and taking patients down to MRI and CT at 5 a.m. I'll do that, but then you get like an American cultivated individual, even me to this day, I'll be like, I don't know if it's worth it anymore for me in my situation.
Yeah, so I know like private equity is kind of like taking over America, it feels like. And I read I don't know if it was an article or if it was just some post that I saw somebody else smarter than me put up, but they were talking about how like the trajectory of private equity taking over healthcare is so steep, and like there's no more private practice, there's no more like just individual hospitals anymore. They're all like lumping them together, and it's becoming an issue with insurance, as you mentioned, and other areas. So I guess my point is like, I guess immigrants would probably be part of the solution, but at what point are they just going to be taken advantage of from these private equities?
I mean, there's a multifaceted issue there, right? You get new help coming in. What's going to happen to the current help the current nurses that are trying to continue their career, right? So we're going to see that getting pushed out, rates going lower because immigrants are more than willing to take a lower pay. There's so many pieces to that puzzle. For instance, Denver here, there's a whole problem with the HCA system with USAP in the anesthesia world. So they just had the general surgeon. What are they called? They're called the AG. But basically, what's happening is there's a monopoly with USAP in Denver, Colorado. They have almost every hospital in the Denver proper area, and they're providing anesthesia for them. And so what the whole deal is that they're coming in, buying these contracts, and in hopes to create a better situation, better for the patients, better for their outcomes, more cost effective. But then what's happening is nothing's really changing. They change the contract. There's all this turmoil in the hospital, and nothing's really happening. And so there's the whole general surgeon who's saying, hey, there's a monopoly here. We need to change something. We need to create situations where our patients could get better care for better pricing within their network. And so they actually lost 5 of their biggest revenue incoming companies and hospitals in the Denver proper area because of this.
And you're traveling around, so you're seeing a little bit of like these different bits of like different hospitals, or I guess like seeing what this looks like in different cities. Is this kind of what you're seeing all over, or just in the bigger cities, or how's that looking?
Yeah, so metropolitan cities for sure. You're starting to see anesthesiology assistants coming into play, therefore making the rates for anesthesia providers to come down. Theoretically, they're saying that it's easier to provide anesthesia. The cost-based model that they have with AAs are supposedly cheaper, but literature shows that it's not. But yeah, we're getting to see that in major metropolitan cities. We just left Boston. They just passed a bunch of AA laws to be able to provide anesthesia. You'll see this in California. You'll see this in Florida. You'll see this in Atlanta, these major cities. But if you go to Wisconsin, you might not see that. You go to, North Illinois, where we first started practicing, you may not see that. South Texas and Corpus Christi, you may not see that, but you might see that in Dallas, Texas, Austin, and things of that nature, where you can get anesthesiologists to come to the city. And therefore, if you have an anesthesiologist, then we can get AAs to practice under their scope and their licensure.
Yeah, so we do have AAs here in Wisconsin, and in Green Bay, the first job that I had, there was no AAs when I first started. I lasted 9 months at that job because it was such a toxic environment to CRNA specifically. By the time I had left, they were thinking about bringing AAs, and then a couple years after I had left, they had brought them in. But that's kind of the point. Like, it was a toxic environment to CRNAs for 20 something years, and then they bring in AAs because AAs, they have to tolerate it. Like, it's not like they can leave and go somewhere where there's a better job or independent practice, like what I had to do, or not had to do, but I got to do, I guess.
That plays back into like the whole nursing thing. Like, yeah, just how it could potentially translate to RNs, depending on what happens in the next few years with all this. So just kind of like your path. I know you mentioned you were a nurse for 11 years before you became a CRNA. Josh went straight into it like a year in.
Smart man.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like at that 11-year mark, and maybe it's been longer. I don't know. I've been out for a little bit, but what was it like for me? I know we got into real estate investing, and like I was kind of doing the math. I was like, okay, like I could go back to travel nursing and make pretty good money and start investing in real estate, or I could go back to school, take a pause on investing for a couple of years. And maybe I wouldn't have had to fully pause, but then come back with CRNA and make more money and potentially be able to invest even more. So I chose the travel nursing route. What was it for you that made you go back to school and become a CRNA?
I actually did the same exact thing as you. I actually started with travel nursing. So my story is kind of unique. It's a situation. It's a story in which everything kind of landed on my lap. So how did I go from a CNA to CRNA? I guess in short, I was kind of pre-programmed with my family, with my mom. She had a little network of her Filipino nurses, and one of those nurses had a little home health, not home health, but a caregiving center where we had like elderly geriatric patients that may had Alzheimer's and stuff. And so I started there as a CNA. And so from there, I got exposure to patients, and while I was doing that, I was also trying to get into nursing school. I got my associate's degree in nursing in San Diego, continued on, got to the bedside, and I started in like a tele floor, and I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life, right? And I was at this point, I was like 21, I think. And right then and there, I was just like, what can I do to get out of this? Right. So I make a decent amount of money. At that point, I was making like 70, $80,000 a year. And I was like, okay, this is pretty good. I went and with my first paycheck, bought a BMW, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then like reality starts to set in, like, hey, dude, you got to buy a house, you got to get a house or get married or all the different responsibilities that like we typically think we have. Um, and then from there, I started saying, okay, well, I probably need to elevate my skill set. So I went to the ICU. Well, I first went to the cath lab from the tele floor, and then I went to ICU. And from there, I spent the majority of my nursing career. And I just burnt out, man. And I don't think I realized that I was burning out, right? So as my personality is to continuously give, and give, and you don't really understand the reality of caregiver fatigue until you realize you're like in a very dark place and it's infiltrated so many other parts of your life. And during that time, for maybe like 9 years, I was doing ICU bedside night shift. So mind you, I wasn't sleeping properly. And during the day, I started doing my hustle, right? So this is the way I started to say, okay, I'm gonna get out. So I started an American Heart Association, CPR, ACLS, BLS, and RP kind of business in San Diego, still running today. So now it's fully operating on its own, able to create income for me, even though I travel across the nation doing anesthesia. So I have my brother kind of as a high level operator for that and part owner to that company. We started getting into the schools around San Diego, whether that was ASU, San Diego State, UCSD, and all these different nursing programs. We started providing the ACLS, PALS certifications for all of those schools. And so that was like 30 cohorts. We were charging like $300 a person, or 30 people per cohort, and we had about like 5 different cohorts. And so we were getting to the point we were making like some months were like $12,000 a month. I was like, hey man, if I dive deeper into this, I could probably use this as my way to get out. So I kind of pushed that and kind of learned how to scale that up. And then I got into anesthesia school. So I met this chick. The way the story goes with that is I met this chick in my ICU, toxic relationship. And you never want to work with somebody, right? That you met at work and then you start dating them. And then we were just like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go actually quit our jobs. And this was just the young version of me. Quit our jobs. We left and went to Southeast Asia for 2 months, traveled all over Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, down to the Philippines, like went all the way through the banana pancake route, spent all that time there. And then after that, we started doing travel nursing. And I was in San Francisco at this time. And this chick came up to me at the hospital and she said, hey, Vince, I heard on the little paper that you wrote, you like to play basketball, you like to work out, and that you want to go to CRNA school. And I was like, kind of. It's like the thing that I said I wanted to do, but then I really didn't do a damn thing to get it done because there's so many steps to getting that done. So she was like, why don't you apply? I have a school that I applied to. Why don't you apply? I'll cover your patients, pass your meds, blah, 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 blah. And I was like looking at her like with two heads. And I was like, bruh, I don't have letters of recommendation. I don't have anything. And she was just like, and I asked, when's the deadline? She said, tomorrow. And I was like, what? And so she's like she didn't take no for an answer. So she starts walking my patients. I had like 2 post-cabin patients there. She was passing them meds. And I'm sitting there in this ICU in San Francisco, applying for a school that I've never heard of, to a program I've never actually done any homework to. So I hit up all my people and I said, hey, I need a letter of recommendation. I submitted everything. By this point, it's like 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. because I was working days at this time. And then I take my patients back and I move on and I totally forget about it. And then we go to our next assignment, and the next assignment's in Hawaii. I'm doing travel nursing in Hawaii. I'm like, this is great, living my life. I'm in Hawaii. I walk to work. The rain feels like a little sprinkle. It's fantastic. And then I'm hitting the gym at like 5 in the morning because there's that time zone difference. And I'm particularly on the bench press, and my phone's ringing at 5, and I'm like, nah, that's probably spam or whatever. And then it like triggers, a light bulb turns on, and I'm like, oh shit, that phone number was from Tennessee. Was that the school I applied to? So like I rush back upstairs from the gym, and I call the phone number back, and it's the program director telling me, hey, we would like to interview you. Could you fly into Tennessee? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I totally forgot that I applied to school. So I tell her, I'm like, she was like, can you come in on Friday? And I'm just like, well, I got a wedding and I got this, I got that. And I was like, can I do it maybe like the week after on a Monday or something? And like, I totally rescheduled it, make it thinking like it wasn't important or anything. And I fly in for the first time into Tennessee, drove over from Memphis to this little school called Union University. It's a Southern Baptist private Christian school. And, I asked the questions and they asked me some questions, and it's like they ended up liking me. And that was how I got into anesthesia school.
Well, that's a crazy story. It fell in your lap. To your point, you've said that before.
It totally fell in my lap. Like this was not something that I planned. And that's kind of one of my things that I live, my mottos, my MOs in life is like to never say no to an opportunity, right? A lot of us, we are pre-programmed to think one thing or have fear tell us to not do something. But a lot of times I just tell myself, just let the opportunity say no for itself. If you don't, then you probably are missing a lot of things in life.
So I want to touch on your Ascend Anesthesia business. So it sounds like you were introduced into business with your ACLS PALS NRP program. And I'm guessing that your Ascend Anesthesia business kind of mirrored a little bit of what that looked like. Can you tell me about like the beginnings of Ascend Anesthesia and then what it looks like today?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually starts with my AHA, American Heart Association company, right? So I started realizing when I started that business, man, I was working nights. I would leave at 7 in the morning from work and then go and teach courses at SDSU or whatever for hours, right? ACLS and PALS for an initial certification takes hours. For new nurses or not even graduated nurses, they don't even really know a dang thing at this point. So you got to really break it down. So I would work 12, then work 9, right, on the side hustle, and then go home and sleep. I'd be hopped up on coffee and be able to get through it. I started to realize in those moments that time is really the most important and valuable commodity that we all have. And we only have 24 hours in the day. So I started to realize, like, how can I continue business and scale up without giving up my time? And the way you do that, I mean, in this day and age is through digital goods. And so I started to realize that is the way I want to do. If I'm going to continue teaching, because I love teaching, if I'm going to continue teaching, I'm going to continue teaching in a way that I can replicate what I'm doing with a touch of a button, with an algorithm, with something else without giving more of my time. And so Ascend Anesthesia was born, that idea was born from that. It was actually an acquisition. So I said to myself, hey, can I start this company myself, start a CEU company, do all the digital goods and create all of that? Or do I partner with somebody that's already started this route? And I'm a big, big fan of that. I love being mentored or seeking mentorship from somebody who's already walked the path that I'm trying to walk. And so I actually ran into a guy named Andrew Rice. He's a CRNA also. And he was a young guy just like me, and he had that hustle and grit mindset. And so, just as you guys know, you are what company you keep, man. So I started befriending him. He had graduated a couple years before me, and he was on that grind, and he had started a small little company. And I said, I was like, after I'm done with school, man, I want to get connected. I want to work with you. I want to see where we could go. And so then I started seeing him at the state conferences. I saw him at the national level. He was doing big things, and I was like, cool. that's aligned with what I want to do. So when I graduated, hit him up. I said, look, this is what I'm doing. I got my online platform, my branding. I got 7,000 CRNA community in my Facebook group. I got a lot of things that I think could bring a win for you, and I think you could create or bring a win for me. And so we joined forces. I did an acquisition of 50%. I told him I didn't want a minority percentage over this. I want creative design because I know what I can do. After all the years that I've failed and made mistakes, I know what I can do with my time and my efforts. And I told him that, and we found, created some terms, and we did an acquisition of 50%. So I am currently 50% ownership of Ascend Anesthesia, while 𝗟𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 is the other 50.
Nice. And that's so just kind of quick, like what that does. It's like where you can do your CEUs as you're traveling and create it as a business trip, right?
Right. So that was really the piece that attracted me when I went in to look for a company that I wanted to partner with. I said, well, I can teach courses, I can create content, things of that nature, but what about the whole tax efficiency part to it? What about the convenience part to it? I want to be able to do my CEUs when I'm chilling on a beach in Hawaii. I also want to write off all the associated costs, the food, the lodging, all of that associated with the seminar, because it's a business write-off. So everything all together kind of attracted me. And so Ascend Anesthesia does exactly that. It makes your life as a CRNA very, very easy to get your CEUs. There's no post-test to it, so that means there's no pressure to the learning, which we all know learning is not about how hard you put pressure upon you, but this environment that you have around you to learn and really digest the information. But also at the same time, you want to be able to like double down or triple down and make it easy to learn, cost effective, tax efficient, and convenient. You want to be chilling and being able to be in your room, in your bedroom or in your couch, and not be worried about like having to be prim and proper and professional when you're surrounded by a bunch of other CRNAs. We all know CRNAs are type A individuals, man. You're not always able to just relax and be you when you're around CRNA.
I completely agree with that. But I will argue, I don't feel like a type A personality except when I'm inside the operating room. That is the only time where I feel very much type A personality.
That's so funny. Yeah, I feel like I've always told myself I'm pretty chill. And then I start seeing myself on The Amazing Race, and I'm like, dude, you're hella OCD, bro. Like you can't even let anybody make decisions for you.
Actually, that's exactly how I feel. So yeah, I'm a poser type B personality. Just kidding.
Dude, as an entrepreneur, you got to be kind of type A, man. You got to look into the details, finding and paying attention to all the little things, because those are the things, man. I'll tell you, from my own past experience, I've lost $250,000 by making a tiny, tiny mistake. I could talk about that later. But dude, you're absolutely right, man. It's all in the details.
Well, we will actually probably ask you about that losing that money later. That's part of our final questions. But in terms of like buying versus starting the business, I know we invest in real estate, and it's always this whole thing of like bringing investors in and giving away a percentage of the deal. So for you, I think it was interesting how you talked about how you brought value, but what value did you see in having a business partner versus starting something on your own and having 100% of it?
I think the major value that I was able to get from it is the acceleration, right? So like just like growing a plant from seed versus buying a clone from a trimming from an actual tree, like the thing is already grown. And so you accelerate the mistakes have already been made. You're accelerating the growth that you have. And for me, like when I started my AHA company, I started from the ground. I learned how to build a business. I learned how to network, and I don't have an MBA in anything. I just have that that hustle ingrained in me. And so like I went out and I worked really hard, and it took me a long, long time to get to make that successful. So I was like, man, I don't really want to do that all over again. I want to partner with somebody who's already kind of got their feet wet, who's already created a small little network, has created a proof of concept, something that's working. something that's creating money. And so the acquisition made most sense. On top of that, Andrew Rice is a phenomenal mentor to me. Despite the fact that I look at him as a peer, I also look at him as a mentor. He brings a lot of strengths to the team. He's very, very involved in the AANA world, while I'm very, very involved in the social media branding marketing space of anesthesia. So I think together we just make a really good team. And so, like I said earlier, man, you are what company you keep. So I think that kind of helped accelerate everything.
I think the proof of concept is kind of a huge part of it also, because like we all have grandiose ideas and we're like, there's no way this doesn't work. But then you like actually launch this business and you're not getting the momentum or the steam that you thought you were going to get. And granted, like over time, it would probably or most likely be successful, but I don't know, just like the rocket fuel that you see that it's already working. Just I think that's something that a lot of people overlook.
Yeah. And it's interesting too now, because like, we were just at our we have a business coach, and we were at a meeting in Dallas last week with our business coach. And one of the things that he brought up, which we've heard from a lot of people, is like this next, 10 years is going to be the greatest transfer of wealth, with all the boomers like retiring and potentially just shutting down their businesses or selling. So there is that. Josh's sister, my wife, and I started a property management company for our real estate portfolio and for something in LA as well. And it's like, now looking back, it's like hearing about all this business buying stuff. It's like we could have maybe bought a property management company and just like started so far ahead and like had that extra boost. And even if we were giving up like 50%, we would have had a lot more. So I think it's an important thing to keep in mind as people are diving into this business buying and that realm of things.
Yeah, Cody Sanchez talks about it all the time, right? Online. It's like buying boring businesses. It's like really the way to go. And as all these old people are like trying to just live their life and retire, and they don't want to deal, because business is never ending, right? Like if you got that shift work, I mean, I'm done. I'm done when it's 7 p.m. I'm done, right? But as a hustler, as an entrepreneur, my hustle never ends, and it doesn't come for free. I constantly have to pay with time to continue to grow it. And so that's really where I'm focused on is people are willing to get out, and I'm looking to buy, and I'm aggressively looking to do that. And I feel like I'm in position to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, there was another group in this group, and they have a business that they've been running for like 20 something years, and their kids are wanting to take over. And they were like mentioning how the kids weren't super passionate about this business, but they've been listening to all these podcasts and everything. And we're just like, wait, hold on a second. Cause like, I do think that like these Cody Sanchez and all these people like oversimplify like business. Like, I mean, she's a beast, like no doubt, but it's like, and Alex Hormozy, but it's like, they make it seem like, yeah, you just get a business, throw an operator in, and boom, you buy another one. It's like, I've been in it. We've been in it for like the last several years. And it's just like, it's like, there's days when I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't mind just working 3 shifts and then just going and surfing for like 4 days. Like that would be really nice, and just shutting off. So what, did that play into your decision at all to go back to school versus like going all in on business and not pursuing higher education in nursing?
Uh, like I said earlier, my MO is to not let not speak for the opportunity and say no to it before the opportunity can say no to it for you. And so like I didn't even really care for the fact that I was going to continue my education, get a terminal degree. I'm just like that. I'm going to do 3 more years of school. I'm going to get to the highest level of nursing in my education. Cool. That's a cool little thing. I could tell my kids like, yo, in this life, you got to work hard. You got to get to the top. You and don't stop until you do. And so for me, it was just kind of it landed in my lap. And then business wasn't at that time really taking off. It was able to provide maybe a replacement of my income, but it wasn't able to. And I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't think a nursing income can truly get you to financial independence alone. And so I was just like, I gotta look for something else. I gotta do my side hustles. I gotta work nursing. I gotta get my education. So I kind of thought to myself, anything that'll elevate me, I'm for it.
Yeah, I mean that kind of goes back to what we're doing here, because it's like I think our audience is more, RNs, but like also CRNAs. Like we kind of want to provide this opportunity. It's like there's a lot of different ways you can go, but like kind of to your point, the nursing career alone is not going to get you to like the financial independence that a lot of people want, because ultimately it is that time freedom that most people want, and that like I think a lot of people nowadays are putting a lot more value on. So that's, yeah, whether it's business or advanced education, like you kind of need a little something more. Otherwise, you're just going to be picking up like 5, 6 shifts a week for the rest of your life.
Exactly. I mean, there was a moment in time, right? Like during COVID, travel nursing was crushing it. And I was looking at rates and I was like, bro, how are you making just as much as me as a CRNA? I went to school for 3 years and you're making just as much, sometimes even more than me. I was like, bet, keep crushing it, bro. But
Yeah.
it didn't last, right? It didn't last forever. And now there's scarcity in the whole field of travel nursing. And so there's more people doing it, less jobs available. Even though the fact that like people are stretched so thin, I just think the healthcare systems are so broken that they're not willing to put the money in to provide the help that they need. But like I said, it's just that would have been like that perfect strike zone. Go in, if you're a nurse, go in travel nurse and bang out as many hours, making 200, 300, $400,000 a year for 2, 3 years. Invest that or go into private equity, private money, lending, or real estate, which are pretty much the three big things that you can do to accelerate wealth in one lifetime. And so if you could have done that, yeah, I could see that happening. If you did Airbnb arbitrage during COVID, got yourself set up for it, made a bunch of money, set those things up to now be crushing it today, I see that happening. But is that happening to most nurses? Nah, that's far and few between.
So I was just about to bring it up, but since you brought it up first, let's touch at real estate a little bit. So have you bought your own real estate? Because I know you talk about doing some private money lending and kind of that route. So what is that all about? Have you bought your own real estate, or are you just a private money lender for real estate?
No, I actually do. I've done every part, I think, to the real estate transaction. It all started when back like 2008, when my mom had lost her house in California. Everything went upside down. She had over leveraged herself. They were sending out all those balloon loans where they were just going to blow up in like 5 years, and it was just interest only. And my mom really didn't know what was going on from a financial standpoint because no one was teaching us as immigrants, right? And we didn't really have the exposure to learn. So I saw that happen firsthand. And then I told myself, I'm going to find out. Everyone's talking about real estate. Do that. That's some way, one way or another, you're going to find your way to wealth through that. So during anesthesia school, or I'm sorry, when my mom lost that house, I actually bought the house that she lives in now. So that was my entryway into real estate and the transaction of buying a property, if you will. Then I bought that business with its anesthesia. So I started understanding acquisition and how business kind of falls into this whole thing. Third year into my anesthesia training in Tennessee, my brother and I, and along with a few of his friends, started looking for properties in Memphis, Tennessee. While I was in school, I was like, look, I'm in school, I'm in Tennessee. I could be boots on the ground, which is super important when you're talking about real estate. I'm boots on the ground. I could check property. I could check work. I could make sure everything is going accordingly. And you guys run this remotely. We all put a little bit of money in. We bought a house for $100,000 in some little neighborhood of Memphis. Found out it was like kind of in the ghetto, and I was like, in the few houses that they had me driving through, I was like, bro, guys, no, we are not buying something here. And so they had no clue. Like the Google Maps weren't really representing the situation properly, right? So then you start driving the neighborhoods, you start driving the streets. We bought a house for 100,000, flipped it, we rehabbed it and flipped it, made $40,000, sold it for 130, and like I don't know, it was like less than 6 months. And we looked at each other and we're just like, what are we going to do from here? We got 50 grand. What are we going to do now? So we were like, let's just do it again. And then we started looking around. We're just like, man, F this. Why don't we just like multiply this by 20? So then in my third year of my nursing career, we ended up, or I'm sorry, in my training, my CRNA training, we ended up buying a 20 unit apartment complex, full dive, full send, went into multi family real estate, crushed it, right? Bought it at the end of 2019. March 2020 happens, and we're just like, oh God, what the heck is going to happen? And I'm like, dude, no, we know what's going to happen. The news is going to fantasize with this whole thing, sensationalize it. And just as real estate always does, it'll have its little drop, but it'll bump right back up. And I foresee that it will be just fine. I didn't know it was going to blow up. So we bought that thing for like 695, bought it for 695K. Did rehabs. We did about 50%, and I would say 75% rehabs on all 20 units. So we had about 15 units rehabbed. 2021, we sold the thing for 1.3. So we made like a decent amount of money on that. And so we bought some houses in San Diego. We bought some single family houses in also Tennessee. So I have done that part of the transaction, but I also now do money lending because I know the process, right? I know what to do, and I know that money is not something that everyone has, and so people do these things. And you see all these social media influencers. They're like, "Oh, I made 100 grand this month," and it's like, well, let's remove all the other stuff and the
Right.
expenses, and you maybe made like 50 grand. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, let's be realistic. Let's be a little honest about what's happening. And so then I started realizing that all these people are doing it. They're living, they're paying rent to somebody who owns their property. They're still living check to check, sale to sale. And honestly, a lot of them are just kind of showing off that they are able to do it, but they don't have the 250K. They don't have the $500,000 to actually do these flips and subsidize their own and rotate their own capital to do these flips until they get to a different level. And so I started realizing, like, I could do that. I could be that other side to the transaction for them.
You mentioned people not having money, which like inevitably you run out of that money. However, what if there was a TV show where you could go on, travel the world, and make a boatload of cash?
Yeah.
Would you be interested?
I would definitely do that. I would
You would definitely do
100% do
that.
that.
So yeah, man. I mean, you've been doing a lot of. I mean, I didn't even know you'd done all that real estate. So that's like crazy to find out about that. We could talk about that for a whole episode. But you're unique in that you've been on this show, The Amazing Race, and that's going on right now. And what was that like? It's one of the few reality TV shows like I'm actually interested in just because of like the travel and like the challenge aspect of it. So how was it, or is it? I don't know.
Right. So I can't talk too deeply about things unless it's been aired already. And so like currently I'm in a $1 million non-disclosure agreement with CBS. So like I can't divulge too much into it. But man, Colin, it was such an amazing time. So one of the major things, apart from winning $1 million at the very end, right? So the winner wins $1 million. I was like, okay, $1 million is a decent amount of money. That would change the trajectory of my life. But then I was just like, but there's all these other people that are also probably really capable and hard to beat. So let's just not bank off of that. So we were just like, but we can travel the world on someone else's dime. We could gain all these really unique experiences that you can't ever do even if you had endless amounts of money. And so Amber and I were just like, I think that if we do this, this will grow our relationship to some different levels, so to a different degree. We will learn things that we would have probably have never known about each other. And so that was really the reason why we did all of that. How was it? And it was unreal. And now watching myself on TV, like acting a fool and like getting frustrated under these high pressure situations, I'm like, bro, your eyes look cracked out. what the heck, man? And I just remember I'd go back into these moments and I'm just like, man, these were such a unique experience that no one can really say. I think there's only like 800 people that can say they've done it. And so it's just very surreal type of experience. I would never change it for the world. Would I do it again? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It was very taxing. I think I lost at least 5 years of life from doing that.
Oh wow. So so I guess like as far as like filming and stuff, are they like just following you the entire time and then they cut out all the good moments and just enter all of your struggles? Is
Yeah.
that how they edit it down?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. You would be surprised. Like you see us driving around in those cars. There's actually four people in the cars, me and Amber. And then there's a sound guy who has this really long microphone boomstick. You got this guy, you think like you get there and you think they're gonna have like little compact cameras. No, they got these massive like cameras on the, high level industrial stuff that they have to run. And bro, like I'm not slow. Like I can run. And these guys can run just as fast, faster than me, longer than me with this equipment on their back, and it's wild, man. It's like these guys are really legit athletes to be able to keep up with these contestants. But yeah, they follow you all around. They got you on that non-disclosure agreement, and if you read it, it's like this thick. If you read it, which Amber and I, of course, read it, we sent it to our attorney. We're like, bro, can you just check if this is safe? And they will. It says in there that they can record you the entire time, 365 days, 24/7, anytime. They have ownership to all the content, so that they can edit you, create a picture of you to be whatever they want to be. So yeah, for sure, they're gonna get Amber yelling at me like, "Can you just get away?" And I'm like over here slipping and falling on the cobblestone, and it's absolutely that's like the drama that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, we my wife and I have a couple friends that were on like another like Big Brother, and they were telling us the backstory, and even just watching it, just seeing the way they edited like and kind of portrayed our friend to be, it was very interesting. I was like, wait, she's not like that. Like they made her out to be this kind of like, mean whatever
The
person, and it's just
villain,
like,
right? Every story has to have a villain. And so like they can
yeah,
create whatever they want. And I'm just like over here, like truly for me, I'm like, I am not a villain. Like I am definitely don't identify with that. I like to help people, but like they could totally make me seem that way, And I'm like, whatever, we'll see.
They haven't yet. So like cross our fingers that it continues that way.
Yeah, right. And I mean, whatever. All publicity is good publicity, so whatever.
yeah, that's
I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am.
Yeah, that's all that matters right there. That's it.
yeah. That I mean, it looks like it would be, yeah, it's an incredible experience. They're probably like, yeah, you guys worked a little too well together on that. We're gonna cut that. Can you guys yell at each other?
Yeah. Side story to that, like we are on season 36, right? That's the current airing season now. We were actually applying for season 35. And so season 36 and 35 were flipped. But mind you, things are a year back. So like when you apply to something and when you actually get on the show, it's actually a year out. So this was October of 2022 that we actually aired this show, or we recorded this show.
Oh
And
wow.
then it was supposed to air in the spring of 23, but it didn't. And so we're here now, airing, and so this whole process has been at least almost 3 years. Oh, a little aside from that, when we actually applied twice, which is a unique piece to the whole story. Is that we applied for 34, and then if you look at, we went all throughout the entire process. This process is long and grueling. Paperwork, weekly emails, psych testing, guys. There's all kinds of stuff to this. And then we go from one meeting to the next. Executive producer. Now we're talking to like the CBS executives. And then we get to that interview, and it's like radio silence. And then a month later, they call us back and they say, "Oh, you're not fit for the archetype that we're trying to look for. So we're gonna just say this might not be going to happen for you guys." And we're like bummed out. And then we finally see the next season that we were supposed to be on, and there's an Asian dude and a white chick from Survivor that was crossed over into the show. So it was just like, oh, I get it now. You got this massive influencer that gets pulled over from Survivor that look a lot like me and Amber. And so then they're just like, we can't have too many of that archetype, you know, the mixed interracial relationship, Asian dude, white chick, all of that stuff. And so then we realized why they asked us again for season 35, and then there was that little flip-flop where they messed up and they made 35 36 and 36 35. So this whole process has been almost 3 years.
So from the time they said you're not fit for this show, was the next time you heard from them the time where they're like, hey, we want you on for season 36?
Yeah, totally. It was like we were broken, bro. And we were just like, Amber and I were like anti The Amazing Race. We were watching it daily. We were just like studying it. We were doing all the things, right? And then we were just like, I'm never watching it again. Forget this show. And we were just rioting against it. And then 2 months later, they called us. We're like, all right, fine. We're back on. We're back.
That stuff's tough. Yeah, it's like the producers are just like, oh, Asian white chick, check. Yeah, we'll put them back.
Yep. And I think it was because they knew we were locums anesthesia, so we could go ahead and put our contract in and be like, I want to be off for this whole entire month. They knew we had that flexibility as locum providers to be able to do that. And so they were just like, nah, I think we'll get another chance with them. Let's put them in the back burner and get them on the next season. But they didn't tell us that, you know, they're just playing with our emotions.
So if you win the show, do they just like hold your check for a long time? Because I feel like that would be a pretty dead giveaway. Like these people like just buying like a house or something.
Right.
Like
yeah.
Not sure who won, but
yeah. I don't know, but there might be signs.
I can't talk about it, but there will be signs.
Yeah, I saw that post you put on, Josh. And I was like, dude, that's totally me. So they don't pay you actually until your show has aired. So mind you, like with that flip-flop of 35 36, like the people who, and more or less everybody wins a certain amount of money. The first place wins $1 million, but then it like drops down and everyone wins a little bit of money. I mean, the last place gets, I think, like $150 and something like that. But second place gets like $25,000. They're, you know, things of that nature. But they hold that all until you actually air. So the people or I who win the Amazing Race have not been paid with that flip-flop thing. So it's been over a year now. I'd be knocking on people's doors too. You know what I mean? I'd be like, hey, where's my money?
Yeah. So we know you made at least $25,000. So that's nice. Right? Because you said the second to last place, or second place gets $25,000.
No, second place gets 25,000. I think like second to last gets like $300 or something. Well, you know, I made 150, you know, because I'm not in last. I almost got eliminated and got last.
That whole time I was like, no way this man just made me fly out to New York City and he's got last place.
Oh, that would have been messed up, dude. It's like, yeah, come and check out the premiere party. Go, and then like you're gonna see me get eliminated in the first episode. Like, nah, I wouldn't do that to you.
No, I would have still shown up for that. I wouldn't. I'd just never talk to you again. I'm just kidding.
That's why we scheduled this interview after.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody asked me, hey, should I show up to the finale party? And I was just like, well, he said, is it worth it to show up to the finale party? And I was like, well, I mean, what's worth it to you? He's like, I mean, are you gonna get eliminated, bro? Like, I mean, you just almost got eliminated, man. If you're gonna get eliminated in the next episode, I'm not coming, man.
Just tell him to get the travel insurance.
I want you to at least be in the final episode.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, getting close on time here, so we'll jump down to our final segment, the final 5 questions that we ask everybody.
Oh, right on.
And we're actually changing them a little bit, so it's the final 5 questions we ask everybody, but tweaking them a little bit here and there now.
Okay.
So first question is, what's a top financial resource that you found? Where do you go to educate yourself?
Resource. Majorly for me, it's books. Social media is like today's gatekeeping, right? It's distraction is today's gatekeeping. If I could keep you inundated with a bunch of information, useless information, you're not going to be able to pay attention to the things that are important. So books for me, real it takes time, right? It takes time. You got to put effort in. You got to be in a quiet place where you can read. So you can't just watch a 5 minute YouTube video and get all the information you can, but in a book you can. And these are all experts in their field to be able to put a book together, right? So books for me is a major piece. I do use YouTube to kind of start my entry level research and underwriting and all that stuff. So for me, it depends on what type of topic we're talking about. Live to Lend by Beth Johnson's a really good book for private lending or starting to do that. Bigger Pockets podcast or YouTube. I would definitely talk about in private lending. I would talk about like Amy Majori, when she talks about private lending, part 3 and part 4 particularly. Just general, like whenever, if you're talking about like a nurse who's saying, hey, look, dude, I'm trying to figure out how to get my 401k and all this stuff, all the retirement stuff's kind of dialed in. The Simple Path to Wealth is was crucial for me to learn that stuff earlier on. And that's by J.L. Collins. As I started getting into business, I started to understand that taxation is one of the biggest expenses of any business. So I started to learn about Tax-Free Wealth by, what's his name? Robert Kiyosaki's CPA, Tom Wheelwright. So it's kind of a dry read, but I read that on a regular basis. Like I pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down to learn about international law, state law, and being able to keep my money rather than just give it away. And then I would say there's a lot of mindset stuff. I'm currently reading a book by John Clear, Atomic Habits. And he talks about, the habits that we create are like compound interest for us, right? So that we just keep on compounding these habits. They'll turn into some massive amount later down the line. And so there's a lot of mindset stuff to it. So those are probably my biggest recommendations as far as what I use to learn and how I learn about them.
Yeah, that's great. So many good resources there. That'll keep you guys busy, you listeners busy for the next few months, if you're anything like me.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say that, so I'm also not great at reading. I don't read, but audiobooks, I do listen to some of those, and the Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. So that was the first time I ever heard the concept of instead of you having to pay the government, you're more like a partner with the government. So think of ways to use your tax money more efficiently. And if it's not paying this year, it's paying in a few years, and using that money to your business advantage. Some people get really triggered when you say you don't pay taxes, but really you're partnering with the government to better use that money for something else.
Right. Tax law is, it scares a lot of people. It's emotional because you're talking about money, but the reality is it's written out. It's a book that says, hey, you can do this for this. And so all you got to do is follow that. And so a lot of people create pre-programmed notions, preconceived things in their heads that say, oh, I shouldn't do that because I'm not paying my taxes. Like, bro, I pay more taxes than the average income. Like I pay more taxes than an average nurse gets paid with their salary, right? So like I'm paying taxes. It's just the more money you make, the more money you have to pay in taxes. So you have to know how to navigate that world. I call it knowing your tax code is like a rich man's coupon cutting. Like if you know how to save your money, avoiding paying taxes on things that are appropriate, you should be doing that. Just like if I could get 2 for 1 at my local CVS or whatever, I'm going to do it.
CVS with like the 16-foot long receipts they print you out.
Yeah, really though. I'm like,
That's
I'm
the
holding
perfect
on to
example.
this whole thing and be like, bro, I might lose this by the time.
Yeah. So the second question we have is, what advice would you give yourself, your younger self, as a, let's say, new grad nurse?
For me, it's kind of, I touched on it earlier. Never say no to an opportunity. Like, as you heard in my story, everything kind of lands in my lap. I've never been someone who's hyper strategic about all the things. I'm just kind of a normal dude that works hard, notices opportunities and seizes them. And so I think for me, to my younger self or to whoever a nurse is trying to do the things that I'm trying to do, I would say never say no for an opportunity, to an opportunity for it. Let it say no to you. And if you take a look at like The Amazing Race, the way we got on The Amazing Race, Amber and I were in Illinois. we get a text message, a DM on Instagram, and they say, hey, we think that you'd be great on The Amazing Race. Amber goes and says, she goes and deletes it. She thinks it's some scam or spam and stuff. And I go to work and I'm just like, I'm going to go ahead and message them back just because. If it's a scam, then it's a scam, whatever. Here we are on The Amazing Race airing today, right? And that is strictly because I actually let the opportunity say no for itself, and it never did.
So they just randomly sent you an Instagram DM?
I wouldn't say it's random, but they sought us out. I think we have a small social media following. We're nurses, we're interracial, so they're probably seeking out and recruiting. So half of this cast is recruited, and then half of the cast is truly organic, authentic applications. So they reached out to us, and whether or not that was random, maybe. The casting producer was from San Diego. I'm from San Diego. Maybe it popped up on our feed. Is anything random nowadays?
No, I guess not. All right. Our third question is, what excites you about the next 12 months?
Ooh, so much. Winning $1 million on The Amazing Race really excites me. I don't know if it'll happen, though.
We don't know if it'll happen.
You don't know. Maybe I do. So I think one of the biggest things that's going to happen is I'm getting married this year. So in November, I'm getting married. So that's really cool. I got a bachelor party. It's kind of a solo trip, actually, a solo trip to Amsterdam. I'm super excited about that in the next 12 months. From a financial standpoint, Ascend Anesthesia is going from active income to passive income. So if you know anything about active versus passive income, passive losses can offset passive income. So I'm working into starting investing in syndication, apartment syndications, to be able to take those tax deductions, accelerated depreciation, cost segregation studies, and be able to take that, offset some of my passive income that I get from Ascend Anesthesia. So I got that going. Private lending, I'm looking to be able to deploy about $500,000 of rotating capital, getting around 18%. So I'm super excited about that. That's part of the 3-year plan to be able to retire here fully, at least. And I think that's probably the main things that I'm excited about in the next 12 months.
Just a couple things going on here in the next year.
Yeah, I know, right? It sounds like a lot.
I was going to say, each one of those things, the average person would probably be ecstatic to be able to accomplish one of those. And you've got, I think you just listed three things. That's amazing.
Yeah, super ecstatic about it. But to be honest with you, like when a bunch of stuff is happening in your life, like you just can't keep up with all of it. You can't appreciate it to the level that you want to. Like when I went all throughout Southeast Asia, like I don't remember Vietnam because I went to Cambodia and I went to Malaysia and I went to Thailand, and it was so many beautiful things happening all at the same time. So yeah, man, it sounds like a ton of things happening in my life, and it really is. And we just take it day by day, week by week, but super ecstatic about everything.
Yeah, that's interesting. I went to Europe a couple years ago, and we went to Sweden, and we were like, oh, we should do like France and Germany and Sweden and like Belgium and all these different places. And then we just ended up doing Sweden for 2 weeks straight, and it's like I have the best memories of Sweden.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, like it was like an eye-opening experience for me. Granted, the next year or 2 years later, we went back to Europe and did 5 countries, and that was an entire with an 18-month-old, and that's like a whole blur. But yeah, it's still, I mean, whatever. As long as you're traveling, it's good stuff. But yeah, one day at a time.
I forgot to add one last piece that I'm super excited about is this trust formation thing that I've really kind of dived into a lot. So if you listen to, what's his name? Mark J. Kohler on YouTube, he's got lots of content. And Google the KKOS trifecta. This is how to create generational wealth and pass that down to the generations that's after me. I'm actually in the process of doing that currently. So I'm getting my all of our family's assets being transferred into the family trust, and then being able to use the income or leverage. We're going to leverage against that, put the money, deploy the capital out, and then be able to use the income that comes from the capital that we deploy to buy life insurance policies for generations and generations of currently I have no kids, but like my nieces and nephews, and all of them. And so anytime any generation passes away, it's going to capitalize the trust, continuing generational wealth through the years. And so I'm in the process of that. Super, super excited.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. So now you're back for 2 more episodes.
Yeah.
But so the fourth question, which we're kind of changing up here, is how do you define success?
Ooh, yeah. I think the success is one, it's relative, right? And so I think most people don't understand that. They compare themselves to someone else, and that's just the thief to joy, really, is that saying. For me, success is tied to finance. I think that's the quantitative way that we can all identify what is successful. But personally, I think success is to be able to do whatever you want when you want. And so when I get financial freedom and independence, I'm able to do that, or when one is able to do that, and I am. So for me, I think being able to spend my time doing the things that I want. So my father just got diagnosed with cancer. So flying back home to San Diego on a regular basis, I'm going there every 3 weeks to be able to spend time. You start to realize how finite time is when you kind of are brushed with death, if you will. And so you start to realize, like, hey, that's probably the most important commodity I have. I should probably use that time really, really efficiently and appropriately, and giving it to the people that I love, and the things that make me happy. So I think that's what brings what success is to me.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your dad. I mean, but that's such a different perspective, even, because most people, it's like, yeah, to be able to like go travel like to Hawaii and like work from Hawaii, but it's like that's such like a real life example of just like building that time freedom and being able to like, yeah, spend time with somebody so close to you when you need to. So
I mean, I've traveled the world. I've seen the world. I've worked all and lived every part of this country, and it's like, it doesn't bring the happiness. That's not success for sure. Like, I could see everything in this world, but like relationships is what it all boils down to. Who you know, and the journey that you have, and the company that you're having that journey with.
All right, our final question is, what's the biggest financial mistake you've made, and what did you learn from it?
So that's why you guys are okay. I get it now.
we were so excited when you said that. We were like, yes, this is a good one.
So actually, we talked a lot about private lending, and my first private lend was actually losing $250,000. And so what happened with that was, it was a fraud, actually. So this guy, his name was Johnny Nogue, and I'm gonna say it out loud for everyone to hear. He was a scumbag, and I am anti anybody who's trying to steal people's money, who's trying to fraud people, sell something that they truly don't have. So this guy had a company. He had a legit company. I went to the warehouse. I saw all of his workers. I did my due diligence to the best that I could at that time. And so it started with like a $60,000 lend, and it was like, cool. So he was giving me about, it was 18%, 19% returns at that time. So I was like, man, that's fantastic. And this was 2016. I was actually just about to get into anesthesia school. So then I would get these payouts, and things were great. He did the wine and dine. He took me out. His little Tesla car doors flied open to the side. He brought me to dinner, showed me all the different things, showed me the warehouse, introduced me to all the different people, just completely pulled the wool over my eyes. And the reason why I trusted him was because he was referred and introduced to me by a really good business partner and friend of mine. And so I had trust in that relationship that you would never, never give me to somebody that you couldn't trust, or we couldn't trust collectively. And so I learned in that process that, one, due diligence is not all you need. You could do all the research in the world. That's not the most important thing. There's multiple pieces to it. And the two things that I learned in that was, one, relationships is everything. Who you know and how well do you know them, and their network, and building relationships that are solid, that as you rise and elevate, they will rise and elevate with you. And so your word has to be your bond. You got to be a person of integrity. And then part two to that is, I learned that I can't do everything. Like, I did all the underwriting. I did as much research as I could. I took in family members' money, like my brother's money. I took money from him. I took money from my friends. And so I lost all of that money. And so I learned in that is that I can't be everything. I have to have a team. So today, you'll never find me alone. I don't do anything by myself. I have experts within my circle that do my underwriting. I have a real estate attorney that makes sure he goes through all of the paperwork and drafts up the contract agreements and the promissory note and the deed of trust and all of these different pieces. I have an in-house lawyer now for anything that I do, paperwork with litigation. I have him review that. I have so many pieces. I have a banker. I have so many pieces to this puzzle that I have created, this machine that I've created. And I've learned, because of that one experience, to never rely on my expertise. There's people who are experts. Find those people and bring them within your circle. Create a win-win relationship with them. They win when I win when they win. We all look out for each other, and we rise together. You know, rising tides raise all boats. And I learned that the hard way through that experience.
I know the theme of when people are starting in their business journey is you're trying to save money wherever you can. And you're a prime example of a real estate lawyer, mentor. That's going to cost way less than $250,000. Like, it might be pricey, but it's going to cost you way less than how much money that you lost in the long run.
Well, so other than the amazing race on CBS tonight,
or Wednesday. What? No,
or
Wednesday.
no, wait, Wednesday. Sorry, Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, 2 days from now.
No, you're going on the news today.
Correct. Yeah. So they're actually hitting me up. Yeah, they want to meet us at like the local hospital that we work at. We'll, go through the operating room and stuff. It's pretty cool. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, that's gonna be cool.
So you can catch that tonight. Amazing Race on Wednesdays. But where else can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm active on the main social media platforms. I do a little bit on Instagram's Threads. I do Instagram. You'll find us on, Amber does TikTok, which you'll find me on most of her TikToks doing stupid things, dances and funny things like that. You can find me on, what do you call this? You can find me on my Facebook group. I have a very active Facebook group of 7,000 CRNAs, and they're all kind of talking about business and locums and stuff like that. And Josh, I'm not sure if you're even on that. I should definitely be getting you plugged in.
Yeah, I don't think I'm on a lot of CRNA groups, but I don't know if I'm on yours.
Yep, you can find me on there. You can find me on Vincent Cagungun on Facebook. So pretty much all the social media stuff, and a few different podcasts you'll find me on.
And your Instagram was Vinny2Guns?
Vinny2Guns_.
All right, we'll put that here in the show notes and all that. And I'm not sure when this episode is going to actually air, but I'm sure we'll make sure that there's at least one more episode of The Amazing Race after this airs.
You got to get to the finale so that this
so that this episode is relevant. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
So that Wednesday night still makes sense.
Well, I will tell you this. I would say that this Wednesday is going to be one of our best episodes. Yeah, you're going to be very excited. So currently we're in 7th place. We went from 12th place to 7th place. So 12th in the first episode, 7th in the second episode. So if you can read a trajectory, you could maybe find out or anticipate where we're headed next.
All right, I'm going to make a reel from this clip right now, and it's going to go up tonight. Well, I appreciate you coming on, sharing with all your tips and tricks and wisdom.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us, man. I apologize. I talk a lot when I'm nervous. So I think, yeah, we're like 75 minutes into this whole thing. I'm like looking at that clock like, oh God, we gotta stop talking, Vinny.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
That was good and great. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having us.